Welcome to Text on Text. This is Jed Sunwall. This month we're talking to Mark Chambers about Jurassic Park. You'll hear this in the conversation, but Mark and I went to high school together. He's a great old friend, an absolute expert on Jurassic Park, and a fellow traveler in so many ways. I love him so much. This is a fun conversation. There are a couple things we talk about I want to get out ahead of. One is we talk about Jevons paradox without talking about Jevons paradox, which when we're talking about making energy abundantly available, I put a link in the show notes to information about Jevons paradox, which is basically that if you make something, more resource efficient, you'll just increase usage of that thing. I also, I might come off as sounding like I'm anti-air quality interventions. That's not necessarily true. I'm very pro air quality, but I think we have to be very careful about how we regulate people's behavior. And then I tiptoe into defending Michael Crichton's record when it comes to climate change denial. I just honestly don't know enough about what he had to say about it, but that's something I do want to dig into at some point, because I think he's a great thinker. And it's very likely that he was just a very successful, wealthy person who ended up developing some crackpot ideas and was very arrogant. That's a definite possibility, but he's also really smart and thoughtful. And so I'm curious to learn more about what he really had to say about climate change and examine those spaces. So anyway, I'm not ready to fully defend his legacy yet, but I'm very intrigued by him. Anyway, I loved reading this book again. If you haven't read Jurassic Park before, you should read it. If, like me, you read it in high school, it is really a cool book to reread in 2025. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. See you on the other side. I forgot to add one more thing before we get into the conversation. I have another podcast. So at work, this is a hobby of mine. Text on Text is a hobby, but I actually have a work podcast now called Great Data Products. We actually just recorded the first episode a little bit before I'm recording this right now. It is a live stream webinar / podcast that we're doing where we talk about what makes data products good. And it's awesome. It was a lot of fun to do. So stay tuned for that. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. There's no podcast subscription link yet, but there will be soon. So stay tuned for that. And then another thing we announced on that podcast was, we're doing an event. Now this is another work thing, but I'm going to flog work stuff here. The Cloud Native Geospatial Forum conference. There will be a 2026 version of the conference. We just announced it today. It'll be October 6th to 9th in Snowbird, Utah. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. I know that some of my listeners were at that conference. So I'd like to see you all there again. Okay, back to the show. All right, Mark, welcome to Text on Text.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah. We should probably get this out front. We go way back. We went to high school together and have been very fortunate to keep crossing paths. So anyway, well, I think this is a fun one to discuss, since we're going to be talking about something that was very much a phenomenon when we were in high school. But before we get into it,
before we get into even getting into it, I went with my son to a freshman orientation this morning. So high school is like right on my brain, of basically like being in an auditorium with a bunch of, soon to be ninth graders, like, and on all the ensuing hijinks that will come along with that.
Man, like I can feel it hearing you say, like, there's an energy to that time. Like,
absolutely.
Oh man,
it's emergent. Great. And it's just like, but also, there's a lot of nervousness I can see in the air too around how to present yourself. It's fascinating. Yeah,
no, high stakes. Those juveniles, like, in the world. All right. So okay, but before we go into it, are you a technologist?
Am I a technologist? I was pausing. It was a pregnant pause just to give myself a second, a little bit of drama also. I would say yes, but I do think that it's worth unpacking a little bit. I think that, like I said, technologist is one of those words that obviously is, what does it mean? But and in the past, I've defined myself as an urbanist, which is also one of those words where it's like, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
But I think my interpretation of it is, for both words, is similar in that the technology, the language of technology that I speak very fluently is that of the built environment. And so how we kind of construct the world around us, whether it's like the places where we live, like, or work or go to school or all those things. And so there's a science and a technology to that I am very fluent and kind of comfortable in. But I do think that inherent in the technologist question is like this, like, I don't know, this like futurist part of like, are you a believer in like the role of technology? And I think, I think I am. I think that especially when it can learn from natural systems, I think I'm very, very much a technologist in that kind of realm of like biomimicry and things that like help us to create tools that mimic the tools that are in place around us already. So yes, short answer. Fantastic. Or medium length answer.
Okay, no, that's very good, and it's obviously very relevant to the text we'll be discussing today, which is Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Yes. Now, are we? So some background. I on Father's Day this year gave myself the treat of watching Heat, which is basically like my gift to myself was like, leave me alone for 3 hours, like 3.5.
At least 3 hours.
So I can watch Michael Mann's Heat, incredible movie that again I associate with high school. I'm pretty sure I saw it. I saw it in the theater with Danny Maluzzo, and I was like, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen." And it hit me very hard as an adult. Like I'm like, okay, I understand a lot more, like sort of like what's actually going on with the characters rather than just like epic shootouts and stuff like that. So, but for whatever reason, I was like, I think I just spoken with you recently, and we were talking about ambition and life and careers, and I was like, we should talk about Heat, and you're like, let's talk about Jurassic Park instead. And I'm like, oh, okay.
You're like, those are the same.
Well, it's funny. They're of the same era. Like I think they came out. They must have come out around the same time. Both, 90s epics in their way, and they've endured. I would say, these are the kind of movies that don't get Oscars, but maybe Jurassic Park got some kind of awards for special effects or something, but have like had a lasting legacy. But so I'm curious, do you want to talk about specifically the movie or the book or both? Because we can talk about all of it.
I think you have to talk about both. I think that there's a lot of nuance in the delta between the two that I think is worth exploring. Just because, like with most stories, there's that opportunity to be a little bit more expansive in the books, and I think that for a story like Jurassic Park, even though it's such a visual movie, like, well, as are all movies, but such a visual such a visual component, I do think that I found the richness to come from both, like, together as a narrative.
Absolutely, yeah. And when did you last see it? Like,
so I watch it. Well, I rewatch it frequently.
Interesting.
So I would say that Jurassic Park is one of those movies that I probably watch it at least once a year.
Wow.
Just because, it is a comfort, like, food version of a movie for me, just because it's pure. There's a little bit of awe in there, and then there's a bit of just like very cautionary tale, like right after the awe, and I love that, and so I find it very easy to put it on and not think about anything else, and so that's it's my whatever Desperate Housewives or whatever thing that is that people would find comfort in watching.
Yes, of course. For me, it is Desperate Housewives. For me, it's Magnum PI, which I haven't watched in forever, but like that is very much like it makes me feel a certain way. That
TC, yeah.
Can you imagine being TC? Can you imagine being friends with TC?
I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
just so many. Ah, man, it would be better. Just be better to have them in our lives.
No kidding.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like, I have chills. Like, thinking about living. Like, I'm not like I'm literally like I don't know if I should attribute that to thinking about Magnum PI. I think I should, but like the thought of living on my friend's estate and using his Ferrari and hanging out with my friends, one of whom owns a helicopter.
Right.
Yeah, like it doesn't get much better. So
seems okay. Seems okay to me. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's for a future episode. How did this happen to you? Every year? I don't watch anything every year, but like, yeah, well, like, when did this set in for you? Like,
all right, so I think I knew early. It was actually the first movie I've ever seen twice in the theater. Okay. And so that was, and I don't know what the circumstances were for that. I think it was just like, maybe I went once when it came out with like my, like, you know, like my brother or like my, you know, someone, and then went back because of some other scenario. And it was for me, it's just like, there's a lot to be excited in that, like that energy around, what's behind the big doors, what's going to happen. I like feeling that way. And I think a lot of us do, you know, a lot of us like the expectation and anticipation. And this movie, I just felt like it does that for me. Now, granted, I won't necessarily say, oh, I'm going to watch Jurassic Park like next Tuesday, like it's my day. It's more like it's a movie that if it's on and I scroll past it, I will stop.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's more of the nature of how it finds its way into my my diet, more so than me seeking it out all the time. But it's on often, so I don't have a problem finding it.
Yeah. Interesting. For me, okay, there are movies like that for me. I was thinking, like, for me, it's the weird movie because I don't know what it's actually titled. It's either Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat. This like
100%. It's great.
If that thing's on, I'm like, yeah.
I don't know what it is about that movie. Yeah, I agree. Something very, I know we can go down a rabbit hole of this type of movie, but I will also just put in this category. It's a bit more obscure. It's a movie called The 13th Warrior, and it's like Antonio Banderas, and it's like it's set in like this Nordic village. It is, I don't know what it is about it, but it is fascinating, and so I also put that on in the same category. Not quite as like not in the Holy Grail category as Jurassic Park, but it's one in which I will watch for whatever reason often. Not often, but like whenever I see it, which now is fewer and further between.
I'm putting that on the radar. Never heard of it. And I'm a Antonio Banderas fan. Like, he's a great actor. So
one thing about that movie that you'll appreciate is it's one of the best examples I've seen in the movie where you have a single character that speaks a different language, and they use through a bit of a kind of just a technique. They introduce the character that doesn't understand the rest of the characters being able to slowly like appreciate like words in a different language, like some other Nordic language, and so it's just like a really thoughtful way of bringing you into the mind frame of someone who's excluded becoming included, just through like the audible way in which you're picking up a few things over just like one sequence. So that's another thing about that movie I find to be really successful.
Interesting.
Enjoy watching it.
Wow. Okay. Can't wait. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So I'm going to just hand it over to you now. Like
okay.
I'll just say this. Revisiting the book and the movie has been awesome for me. Like a real revelation. It's a very good text to revisit in the year 2025, for so many reasons. And I've been obnoxious talking to everybody I meet about it. I'm going to like work stuff. And I'm like, I actually just read Jurassic Park and it's really interesting because blah, blah, blah. And like Shannon, my wife's like making fun of me because she hears me on calls talking about Jurassic Park all the time.
Right.
So I have a lot to talk about, but I want it. This is your show. So I want to hear why it's so significant to you.
Yeah, fair enough. Do we, and the assumption here is that everyone understands the Jurassic Park story. Is that a fair
This is
assumption?
it's an all spoilers podcast. Like,
Okay.
And at this point, this is a sort of like we all know how the Sixth Sense ends. There's the statute of limitations like long past. Like everybody should
Right.
know what's going on with Jurassic Park. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair. All right. So I will tell you about the things, some of the like the pieces why it speaks to me and what I really kind of appreciate about it. And a lot of that has to do with my just kind of like taking these little critiques and like particular examples within the storyline that I found to be informative, right? A lot of it for the work that I do, but also for like kind of my like personal regulation on how I view a lot of things. And you can always extract things from different stories, movies, but this one in particular I find to be useful. So one of the things is that how we think about like fragmented knowledge, right, versus like holistic, right? So the idea that you can be so siloed and focused on a particular problem set or problem solution that its ability and necessary interaction with other problem sets or other challenges, it becomes completely opaque to you. And I found that to be something that is always like this a cautionary tale against like being myopic in that way. So in the Jurassic Park sense, of course, it's like they're in a rush to be able to clone dinosaurs, right? To use the technology of cloning to be able to apply it to an extinct species in the hope of de-extincting these species, which is something that is kind of top of mind because it's happened recently with the work with the dire wolves. I'm not sure if you've seen that. Yeah. So it's like being able to think through like, can we bring species back into ecosystems that they're no longer a part of. And but again, you do that based on like you have to be willing to silo yourself and say, hey, I'm focused on this particular challenge, this particular thing. And that is inherently problematic, right? And I've found that when you look at problems from one perspective in that way, you necessarily get yourself into trouble. And the work I do is on climate, which is like interrelated into every single other aspect of how we live here in this planet. And you find that like a lot of the solutions that people will propose or want to kind of avenues they want to go down as relates to combating a changing climate end up having like the potential for these unintended consequences that if you're just focused in one area, it's easy for you to ignore, but it's necessary for you not to. And I think Jurassic Park is a great example of that because you're just like, man, yes, if you put enough like money, power, scientists, in line, they can accomplish a thing, but to what end? And is that end going to ultimately become catastrophic to other challenges that you weren't even paying attention to?
Yeah. Let me you just reminded me, I'll riff on that. Yes, like this is like such a theme of the book, and Crichton's voice in the book comes through, I think most obviously through Ian Malcolm. It's like Crichton.
Yes.
He's like, you don't understand what you're doing. And I need to read State of Fear. So this is the book that Crichton wrote about climate science.
Mm-hmm.
That, like he's been, his people tried to cancel him, so to speak, at the time for being like a climate denier. But I'm pretty sure he was just being like, let's just be realistic about what we can and can't know about the environment and also what we can do about it. And pointing out that like, if you let this kind of science become politicized, there will be problems. And so anyway, I need to read the book. I think his reputation probably is defensible here because he's just being like, hey, like, I'm not denying that humans are having an impact on the environment. I'm just like saying like, we should maybe be a bit more humble about what we think we can do about it. And anyway, that's another future episode, but like, so I worked with somebody when I was doing a lot of sustainability stuff when I worked at Amazon. And I remember interacting with somebody, I think at the World Bank, who was like, yeah, like one thing that we're focusing on is getting people to stop using wood fuels or charcoal to cook food
Yeah.
because of the emissions associated with that. And I'm like, whoa, hey, like that is to it's an example of your point. It's like I'm very focused on emissions and these kinds of emissions, and we've done some modeling and found that like emissions are caused by cooking food, and that all these things would be better if people didn't do it that way. And then I'm like, well, hang on, like, are you telling people they can't have a little char on whatever, like their chicken or their beef or whatever it is? Like that is like it's such a totalitarian approach. It's just like, no, like you can't do this. It's not good for you. It's not good for the environment. You're not allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like to me, that there's like a direct line between that kind of intervention and that mindset and people voting for Trump. People be like, wait, what are you telling me to do? I will vote against whatever it is that you're telling me to do. If you're telling me that like I can't grill out with my family, like because that is what they're saying. They're like, oh, you shouldn't grill.
You're like what? Like how do you like you know what it takes to get this bark on this on the edge of this brisket? I mean 100%, right? I think and it's proven out that this is not a successful strategy, right? This is a strategy of extraction of taking things away from people is not an effective solution. In the world of kind of like narrative storytelling, they look at kind of the more successful route. So instead of kind of the gloom and doom strategy, it's much more potent and powerful to talk about possibility. What are you getting as opposed to what are you losing? And the same thing goes here is that there might be like empirical and critical evidence that there is a like demonstrable impact between like charcoal grilling and like user health in terms of like air quality, and then also potentially like emissions. But it's like, okay, so stop doing that. Okay, so what am I replacing that with? And then also like why? Like why is this the thing that I should be doing? And I mean the same thing. We have this conversation when we talk about electrification, like particularly around electric vehicles. Like people want to say, hey, you want to take away your gas powered vehicles and make the electric cars. And we've seen the current administration has been able to pull back so many of the efforts around like increasing the capacity for charging stations and all these different things around electric vehicles, because people don't know why they need to switch or why that would matter and why that's helpful to them. And it goes to this missing piece around like, what's the future we are trying to achieve, that we're trying to reach? And that future can't just be, we want you to change this out because the data says it's better. It has to be, this is going to be like something that is like more enriching, more like valuable, and ultimately like make you happier. And so how do you lean in with that as opposed to being like, I'm smarter than you and I need you to switch it. Right.
So, but this is great. This is a perfect segue back to the book where Hammond is like, what would be awesome to make people happier and will be great is if we have dinosaurs again.
Yes.
Which is also like hard to argue. People are like, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, yeah, this would be fantastic. And you're like, maybe that sounds interesting. And I also love about this is that in the book in particular, it's like there's a lot of secrecy kind of built into like what he's doing on this island, like and it has this very like we've been doing like deep seated research for the last decade and kind of like and applying a technology that was kind of in development for one thing and using it for a completely different purpose. And so you have like this whole narrative of him buying like these supercomputers, and they're like, wait a minute, he has 5 of these supercomputers on an island. And they're like, well, wait a minute. Each one of those computers it has like the capacity of like everything we built to this point, and he has 5 of them.
Yeah.
Like, what could he possibly be doing? What could he possibly need it for? And they're like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, how many lines of code could you possibly need? Or like, and they're like, oh, wait, unless. And then you start to kind of like reveal this idea that the DNA sequencing is the only thing that could have that many fields that need to be occupied by this level of computing power. Which I find I like the reveal of that secrecy, because you're also starting to kind of, again, you're mimicking this world of like product launches where you're saying, hey, they've been in deep R&D mode, getting funded by some billionaires, and then they're going to release this new model that will ultimately, this happens to be alive.
No, it's wild reading it now for so many reasons, because like he's such a good writer and is so insightful, like right off the bat, about the collision between the commercial sector and like deep research, and like
yes,
how academia, even back in like, I guess 1990, I think is when he wrote the book originally. Like
I think it's around that. Yeah,
he's like, academia is for like losers. Like he's just sort of like, oh, you just want to like waste your life getting approval and getting grants to do little things here and there. Like, come actually do real stuff in the commercial sector. And it's so expertly done how like it's very nuanced about it, how like he gets Grant, the paleontologist, Sam Neill's character, and Ellie, to like ditch everything and come to the island. He's like, I'll fund your research for 3 years. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll do whatever you say. Like I mean, no, it's like nothing to him in terms of like financially, and they're just like bought and sold immediately.
Right. And they had to struggle for so long and so hard to like scrap together money to do this like really like labor intensive work. And, he just comes in and pops a champagne bottle and it's like, hey, I can fund you for 3 years. Like, I don't not even consider it to be a rounding error. This is like pocket cash for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then in the movie, it's very expertly done, because the next scene immediately is Nedry selling out. Like, and I don't remember if it's the same sequence in the book, but it's like sort of the other side of that coin, where it's like Nedry's just like one greedy guy who's also like relatively cheap. Like, he's taking some payday, that obviously ends up killing him. But that's not like a ton of money. But he's just like, no, like you were skimpy, like you were stingy with my salary, so I'm just going to sell you out. And anyway, it's just this. It's I mean, this is like kind of like almost the crux of the book, is that like you have this perfect plan, and then you just have like one greedy guy defect, and you did not account for that, and it ruined it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, so I mean, I think it's 100% right, and like you have like a lot of it goes into this, which is another big theme that I take from this, is like the idea of control, right? And the idea of like your theory of the case for like your input and what you're getting out of it is also partly based on your ability to control all of the data points, all those inputs and outputs, and when you have bad actors, or you have like other interactions with other systems, like those can kind of throw your orbit off. And that's part of it, is how are you allowing for there to be some breathing room in any problem you're trying to solve, or any solution you're trying to implement. And that, I think, is probably one of the more key, I think, central, not only themes of the story, but themes of like to take away from this, is like, you've got to always kind of assume the fact that like you are not going to have complete control over the implementation of solutions. There's going to be some level of some externalities that are going to make this like difficult. And then the question is like, are those externalities deal breakers, right? And which things are going to, and so, I mean, so let me, another example, or at least like the thematic example of this, is that a lot of my career and times I've spent has been in the world of public policy, particularly in public service, and development of policy for any type of like municipality or city. I worked as a chief sustainability officer of Washington D.C., but also of New York City. Very similar in being like unique cities. One being nation's capital and having like a city state quality. One being the America's largest city, so having like a grandeur and like a scale impact based on what you do there. But some of the tenets are still the same. When you're briefing a mayor or you are putting together a policy proposal, you kind of list out, you have what your kind of intended outcome is. What's your theory of like, we're going to do this. This is going to be what we think is going to happen. Then you go through and you kind of like, it's almost like the or else list. It's like, if, this is what's going to happen, or else this could happen too. This could happen and this could happen. And you kind of allow for there to be like judgment based on some of these places in which you are not in control and you don't, for whatever reason, you don't achieve the outcomes you're looking for. And you also kind of go through and you identify all the different, whether it's constituents or like groups that like will be impacted and what their likely response is going to be, so that you can basically anticipate and basically say, hey, look, this policy is amazing. We're going to mandate that you retrofit like big buildings across the city, and you're like, this is going to be great, and like apartment buildings are going to get retrofitted. All these things are going to happen, but the condo and co-ops folks are actually going to be like overburdened with how like their ability to like pay for some of these things, and they're going to hate it. Or you're going to be like, oh, the affordable housing folks are going to be like, are you creating like a mixed incentive for, big buildings to like not do work, and only people that can't afford it have to do it. Like all those little pieces are how you kind of actually like identify, are you going to be in control of the outcome or not? And usually you're not, but the assumption in Jurassic Park, or in the theory of Jurassic Park, is that you would always be in control. And that's a critical error.
Yeah. Yeah. You got this island, you're like way out on an island. You're paying everybody. You've got like the top smartest people, you're paying them all well, and you got the best computers and stuff like that. But then, like you're not, there's just one guy that, you screwed up with, and it's all over. In addition to the fact that like you created dinosaurs, which that was like going to be a problem. Yeah. Like even without, I mean, the book ends. It's actually like this fantastic line. It's the last note I took from the book, is just this exchange on the helicopter, as like, it's like some Costa Rican government or like military guy that's part of the evacuation. He's asking Grant, he says, please, senor, who is in charge? Nobody, Grant said.
Yeah, you're right.
It's this awesome thing about, I sent you that article, I'll put it in the show notes, but that by Newport in the New Yorker, where he points something out that did not occur to me at all while reading or watching, was that like, there is no protagonist. Like, right. It's just the story of what's happening. Like, no one is in charge. I mean, if there's Hammond, the creator, is sort of the main character, because like he's the one making everything happen, but that's not really how the book's written. And and spoiler alert, like he gets eaten in the book.
Yeah.
He's not just this like cuddly grandpa like that he is in the movie.
No.
He's kind of a bastard. Never learns anything, and then just gets eaten alive.
And this gets eaten, especially like by the compies, which are like the little ones that like just like gnaw at you. Yeah, which I think is fantastic ending. And in the movie, they definitely paint him in much more of like a Walt Disney-esque way that gives him this like, he's like they kind of, is that scene where he talks about the his first like circus, or like big top like flea circus, and you're like. Yeah. And so you're like, he's like, he has this like, it's more about like, he's ambitious as opposed to he's like nefarious. And I think that in the book, you get a lot more understanding that he's super greedy. And like the ambition here is monetary. It's like, you want to do this, but you want to do this with the outcome of being like, to make like a significant amount of money. Like, and in this case, it's also like, it's like early 90s $1 billion, as opposed to like 2025. So it's like, he's really trying to like stockpile the cash based on his ability to kind of control something that is inherently out of control. Which I think is like, again, what's the outcome you're looking for? Like, what's the vision of the future that you want? His is one where he maintains complete control and makes a lot of money off of that control. And I think that it ends up being particularly problematic for his like ability to breathe and live further.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's a great passage in the book about he's debating with Wu, I think it's Wu.
Henry Wu.
Yeah, Dr. Wu. He's like, Dr. Wu's like, look, like, hey, I think we could probably make some other modifications to the dinosaurs to make them, easier to deal with for a bunch of reasons. Let's see if I might even have it here. But like, he's just like, no. Like, Hammond's like, just make real dinosaurs. And it was just like, I don't know, like, what that is. Like, I'm not really sure if we know really if we've done that or not, and like, it's so awesome. Like, he's like, no, just make a real dinosaur. Like, that's what people want to see. And I'm like, no one even knows they won't be able to tell whether or not they're seeing a real dinosaur.
Right.
And I don't know if I can find it anyway, but like, it's really, it reminds me also of this weird passage in the book that like they talk about Hammond as like previously traveling with I think a very small elephant. Like, it's like they made an elephant and
a pygmy
show
elephant.
it off to people. But then like what he wouldn't share is like they were never able to make another one, and that this one was like always getting sick. And it's like, maybe it's just me reading into it, but I think Crichton is doing a pretty good job of showing off sort of the nuance of the ethics of this. Like, these are living creatures that want to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have their genome is motivating them to like move through the world, but the world, they're not made for this world. So like,
no,
how hard is that for them? And in particular, I mean, the crazy thing that was totally like went over my head when I read it when I was in high school is the end, when you realize that the raptors they're trying to migrate. Like, they're doing whatever they can to like, they're aligned to the magnetic poles of the earth somehow, and they're trapped on this island. And so they'll do whatever it takes to get off the island.
Absolutely. They're recognizing their constraints, and they're like, there is the potential of freedom, right? And like from these limiting factors, and that's enough, right, to get them to, in the case of the book, like to get onto like a ship that is departing from the mainland, and they're kind of really just like focused on that. And I think that we don't have to go very far to kind of look and find examples of like freedom being a big motivator for like people and all kinds of creatures. And I think that there is a really, to your point around thinking about like there not being a protagonist, it's like there are a lot of different perspectives displayed in this story, and one of them is from the perspective of the animals that are kind of brought back to life and are not interested in the future that's being proposed for them. That doesn't work for them. So they're like, I have claws and venom, and I'm going to use them.
Yeah, I can change my sex, so I can like
they're like, gotcha. I can do new things. I think I just love, again, I love this idea of control and whether and appreciating the humility that comes with knowing you don't have it. Another, like, probably one of my favorite parts of the book per se is this is not at all in the movie, but it's the underlying kind of rationale or like analytics that go alongside with them realizing that the animals are reproducing. Like in the movie, they kind of like, they see the broken eggshells and they're like, oh, the animal's reproducing. And that happens in the book, but then they're like, it can't be them because the animals are all female. They're not able to reproduce. And they go and they kind of like, and they kind of go through the whole fact of how the whole park is set up to have these motion sensor kind of like motion sensors alongside cameras, like throughout the entire park, like covering all the spaces, enough for them to get a visual capture and count of every animal in the park, at all times. And so, and that's part of their like, and they're redundant, and they have them set up to like count the animals every like 5 minutes or something like that. And it's like part of their like big kind of risk analysis response, right? We know the risk is we don't want to lose any animals. They're super expensive. We want to make sure that if anything happens to any of them, we know it immediately. We can address it. And they're going through the whole process, and then they're like, hey, look, we think the animals are reproducing. They're like, no, they're not. They're like, hey, I want you to do a count. And they do a count, and they're like, no, I told you, we have 230 animals. We've made 230 animals. That's what it's supposed to be. And they're like, have the system check for 231 animals. And they're like, why would we do that? They're like, well, just try. And then it checks that, and it kind of ticks up and up and up. And the system was set up, and it's a confirmation bias really, but it's set up to be able to count for the number of animals you think are in the park, because you're protecting against losing them. And then when you change that denominator and ask it to look for more, it finds more. But they would never even potentially think that there would be more, because they thought they had control over that particular aspect of the creatures. And so it's now you've taken your bias, you've built a tool, a system in place, in this case, like massive, like computer architecture that is informed by that bias. And then now you're making new decisions based on a system that is inherently flawed, which I think we do all the time. And we find we often like, and then we're concerned about like how we look at like different types of like inequity and like and issues that kind of relate to like how we're dealing with like overburdened populations, or folks that are being excluded from a lot of different services and all these different things that happen in real life. And they're all built on systems that we've created that have underlying bias that we are often unwilling to address.
Yeah,
that was a lot. Sorry, I went over the arc, but that's also a thing that I think probably my favorite part of the book, because you have to just constantly question systems, because a lot of times you think that those systems are non-negotiable, and oftentimes they're the problem.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, and I mean, it gets to the heart of, it's a very hard, it's hard to become completely unmoored with this conversation, because there's another part of Ian Malcolm or Crichton speaking through stuff. He says, I quoted it all here. He's like, 50 years ago, everyone was gaga over the atomic bomb. That was power. No one could imagine anything more. Yet a bare decade after the bomb, we began to have genetic power. And genetic power is far more potent than atomic power. And it will be in everyone's hands. Blah, blah, blah. I'll just keep reading. It will be in kits for backyard gardeners, experiments for school children, cheap labs for terrorists and dictators. And that will force everyone to ask the same question. What should I do with my power? Which is the very question science says it cannot answer. And it's this great, like, for a long time, the way I've sort of characterized my career and like work is democratization of technology, like, and specifically data. And I'm like, I want, and when I talk about democratization, I'm like, I want more people to have more power. Like, that's the idea, is to like expand power to people. And but it's like, I don't know, so I'm just becoming like middle-aged. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, first of all, I don't think a lot of people want lots more information and power. Meaning, like, what's the example I was used for this is like when I lived in California for a long time, and there was a ballot referendum, like, and it's actually very relevant to this. It's should we regulate genetically modified foods? And it's just like, it's a referendum they put out to the average California voter. And I'm like, who among the general populace has like any informed opinion about any of this sort of stuff? Like, it's very much like, and I'm like very much, obviously I run a nonprofit. Like, I've got my hippie card. Like, I'm into like organic food and all that sort of stuff. I read Michael Pollan books. Like I'm that kind of guy. But I was just
Right.
like, I don't like this. Like I
Yeah.
felt like there's obvious reasons why, like I think there's some genetically modified foods like that are good. And also like a lot of the foods we eat are technically genetically modified. We've modified them through agriculture over, the course of decades and centuries and even millennia. It it instilled in me a skepticism that remains, which is just like every time I see a food label that's like non-GMO, I'm like, you're just like duping people into being afraid of something that they don't necessarily need to be afraid of. And all this going back to say is that like we we do have a lot of power, and we increasingly have power like over information and having a greater understanding of our world. And obviously tech companies have enormous amounts of power and control over populations. But what do we do with it? And no one can answer the question. Like,
Right.
it's usually just like, well, I guess like make more money or something. It's just
Yeah. You're like, okay.
yeah,
Is that right?
yeah,
You just increase it. I think, yeah, 100%. I also think that, so as you're saying that, I was thinking about, one of the kind of most, like emblematic examples of like positive, genetically modified food is the dwarf wheat, which was kind of like basically, it was based, I think it like won a Nobel Prize at some point in time or whatever else, but it was basically like where they kind of realized that, you can genetically modify wheat to grow smaller, but like have a heavier yield, right? So then it was like, because like some of the larger wheat, like if it had a heavier yield, it would fall over and not grow. And it's like they kind of made them smaller and like bigger in a lot of ways. And that saved like billions of lives, right? Because like all of a sudden you were able to mass produce, wheat and get that to places that needed that nourishment. And so you're kind of like, oh, that seems like a good use of this particular kind of power, right? So it's not inherent. It's not all these things are not inherently bad. It's what you choose to do with it, and who is empowered to be able to make those decisions. I think is often the case. We get into this zone where it's like you want to be able to have the democratization of that decision making, but it's informed democratization, right? So you have to give alongside the decision to say, hey, we don't want these things in our food, or we don't want this technology to be used a certain way. It's like, whose responsibility is it to kind of create that baseline understanding of what's the technology has as its, as what's possible with it and what it actually does. And oftentimes that falls on the same organizations that are trying to benefit from it to educate, or it falls on on government to educate based on the fact that you think that, like, based on the idea that we believe that government is supposed to be unbiased and to give, and to always have kind of like the best interests of the population at heart, which I want to believe it often does and should do. And I've spent a lot of time doing just that, but we've also seen that it can be misused, that government responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, this is so I just actually just texted this to you in the background. I'll put this in the show notes if I can find the original, because this is a weird screenshot I have of this. And I also don't know who to attribute this quote to.
Okay.
But it's all things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails at a given time is a function of power and not truth. And what's great about what I sent you, I mean, again, I'll put it in the show notes, but is it's the family circus. It's just the mom like talking to the kid, explaining this like important fact.
Yeah.
It's not from the family circus. It's just like a great meme template. But yeah, like, so the idea being that like, yes, we can give people more information, but like what information we're giving them is informed by tons of decisions that are made by either people in power. To go back to your example of, how many dinosaurs we're going to count, it's based on assumptions, biases, and so forth. So I guess I've just become this is sort of like less glib or facile about it. I'm just like, well, I don't know if necessarily giving people more information is like the answer. It's still broadly what we're working on. but it's just nuanced. You just have to be aware of like all these potential pitfalls.
Yeah.
There was one
No,
other
yeah.
thought I had in response to what you were saying, but go ahead.
No, mine is, I'm, probably going to veer off, but like, just like a quick response to what you said. I think part of the answer is, I believe very strongly in public service and in that being a particular need across the board. So I still think that in the democratization of the decision, it's not just putting information out there and people take whatever. It's this idea that the idea of like the republic, like you are choosing those that will operate on your behalf. And so I find that like putting a lot of energy into uplifting the idea of public service as still being something that is like particularly important for folks to get involved in, to nurture those folks, will still be relevant, because I think you're still going to need to put people in place that will do that work and do that investigation to be able to be stewards of larger populations. I think that continues to be, I think, a necessary effort.
Oh man, thank you for saying that. Like that's very clarifying, and like I agree. Like because the thing is, like if you're pursuing power, and this is a theme that's come up on this podcast before. Like and there's the book that we read, A Wizard of Earthsea, which is a really cool like book about a young wizard becoming very powerful, and realizing pretty early on in his journey that like if he becomes very powerful, he will become subject to that power. Like he will lose all this freedom because he'll be just constantly pursuing power. And obviously you've worked with executives, like with, leaders, elected leaders, executive leaders who that's the world they live in a lot of ways. But of course, ideally a public servant or, somebody seeking public office is tempered by a desire for service. That obviously that's not always the case, right?
Not always the case. And it's like, you want to encourage it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's something that, again, I think like why my quixotic desire with this podcast has been to get more people who work in technology to engage with the humanities so they think about these things. Because otherwise you're just like, oh, I'm going to make the number go up forever, and like, that's my purpose in life. And it's like, no, like you can serve other people, like you can help people. Like there's another that's like harder to quantify. But yeah, no, I'm with you. Like it would be nice to figure out how to instill that ambition in people to serve more than just to be powerful.
And I do think that right now I've been fixated on the idea that part of how you do it is this notion of asking yourself, what is the future we're trying to move towards? And if you can answer pieces of that, it gives more people, I think, the ability to see their place in the development or the access of that future. We talked a little bit earlier about, or maybe use an example of the idea of like electric cars and why that's something that people should do. And like, yes,
right, you
kind of electrify the grid. It reduces emissions. You're not burning fossil fuels, to create electricity to then power things. That's better, right? We know, like empirically, that is better for our ability to not have a more chaotic climate that is exposing us to like kind of like death and destruction. That said, I think that when I talk about this, one of the things that I find to be more compelling and also like factual for what I believe is that I don't want to pay for energy anymore. I'd like to not do that. All right. I'd like to say that I think we would be better off if we had abundant energy and it was not a commodity that we have to like trade or to sell. And the only route towards that is having renewables, right? You do one kind of generational investment in kind of solar, wind, geothermal, et cetera. And then you reap the benefits ad infinitum forever, right? And so that I think is it. And then you do that enough in one push where you have enough energy that it's no longer, that's constantly reproducing after you've recouped the cost to build it. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Everybody has free energy. And I think that's a future that I think is easier and more understandable to try to paint for people. And it's almost like this is the way we get there. We get there because we don't have the costs that come along with burning fossil fuels to our like health and wellness. We don't have the costs of extraction and the impact that has on our natural environment. And we have like energy that we just use as we see fit. I mean, granted, I'm sure there's some things around like efficient use of that energy, but I don't want that to be something that's on our agenda anymore. I'd like our future free and abundant energy. Then I think people can like think how they play into that.
Interesting. Okay. I love it. I mean, it's okay. I mean, my limited understanding of these kinds of things and like I think like network dynamics and stuff like that. You probably know this like if you've been studying like urban planning and stuff like that. Like if you put more lanes on a road, it's just going to fill up with more traffic. Like all networks, like anything where you like add more capacity, like all the capacity gets used. And so it is fun to think about if you drive down the cost of an electron to, effectively zero, like what would that do? And like then would you have to regulate it or not? It's actually, it reminds me of something very personal. Like just last night, I was very late working, which have tons going on right now, a lot on my plate. And I'm like, oh, I've got too much on my plate. And I'm like, but I know if there weren't a lot on my plate, I would just put more stuff on my plate. Like I don't just like by design, I can't help but like just give myself stuff to do and like ratchet myself up to like some level of stress. And anyway, it's just interesting to imagine. It's like, okay, like energy's free now. It's like, well, hold my beer, watch this. Like,
right.
All of this. Like, figure out a way to make it scarce again, or something.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely think there needs to be some constraints that go alongside that. And probably maybe the solution is more like those clean electrons become the currency so that's what you're exchanging as opposed to something else. So we can dive into that. Yeah.
There is, I have to find, there's an essay I read recently about sort of like this for the history of science fiction. And there was sometime in like mid 20th century, the idea that you would be paying for things in electricity, like it literally is the currency, which feels like a pun, but I think like the words are like very related to one another.
Yeah,
currency.
I think so.
Anyway. So here's the thing though, also with any of these like visions of abundance, because I agree. B, I've used the term for years, which is even before Ezra Klein and his friends or whoever started talking about abundance, the term abundant dignity. Like that's my goal for myself and for the people who work with me. Like I want us to be proud of what we do and to be able to sleep well at night and also to be able to like have a roof over our heads and go out to dinner with our friends. And, it's a comfortable life, but nothing ridiculous. And, I'm happy to be on record of saying like, I think getting really rich is like bad for you. And I think this is also like documented throughout centuries of like philosophy and like religious like thought. But so abundant dignity is sort of like what we want. But anyway, back to the idea of like, just sustainability and like low energy costs and stuff like that is the end goal. However, like more human life, that's kind of like the roadblock that I always run into in sustainability conversations is that I'm like, okay, how many humans do you think we should have? And like, and what are you going to do about it? Like, no one can answer that question. So
no, I agree, but it's hard to kind of get into that zone. It's not an infinite number, right? I think part of, you don't want any kind of infinite sets within like a finite, or infinite like components of a finite, data set or in this case, like finite planet can't have too many people.
Right.
But that runs up against your dignity proposition, right? It's like the ability to live with dignity has a real clear understanding of there being balance in the amount of resources and users of said resources. And so I do think that the dignity part comes alongside a real clear understanding of how we allow for the, there's a, in the sustainability community, and I'm going to butcher this quote, I can't, or butcher this terminology, but it's like, they say that sustainability is like basically you're kind of like protecting the ability of like everyone and their children to thrive, right? And I say everyone is like every like living creature and their children to thrive. And so, and in doing that means that there can't be more. It can't be like too crowded, right? It needs to be something in which there is, and so how do you do that? You do that through having a clear understanding what the resources are, a support of those resources in ways in which they don't use up too much kind of land or too much water or too much all those things. You also have education that goes alongside that, so that people can live with dignity because they've been educated about their bodies and they've been educated about like their options and abilities to participate in this like society or whatever society they're part of in balance. But you have to take ownership of the fact that it doesn't necessarily happen by accident. It requires a mutual intent for that to be the case. I think it's a good version of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it's so interesting to think about how like somewhat unique that is to these concepts are to our time, where it's like, you just have to dial the clock back like a few centuries and people are like, it's awesome to have slaves. Like, I love it.
Right.
And also God blessed me to be the kind of person who gets to have slaves, and it's my right to do this, and, I am glad I don't live in that world, but like, there's still a lot of work to be done. I think we just constantly have to sort of like relearn the fact that like we're all humans. We all, the notion of the human rights, which is like a relatively modern invention, in the grand scheme of things. This understanding that everyone is entitled to some form of dignity, and that like if you're living your life in such a way that you are absolutely imposing on everyone else and future generations, like you should feel some shame for that, or something like that. Like it's a moral, like we're making a moral judgment against that kind of behavior.
Yeah, and and we're tying any one person's dignity to the dignity of each other, right? So like my exercising of my dignity or my right to it also necessitates that I protect yours as well.
That's right.
And that has to be a kind of a core belief in that, which I think is, we don't. I think there's you made a kind of comment in there that's just that like we don't talk about that as much anymore, or we're not really kind of like engaging in that. I do think that there has to be some, real convergence around empathy that resurfaces or is just put back into the mix in a way that is like a little bit more heavy-handed, because otherwise, like right now, the dominant narrative is get rich or die trying, right? I do think that is if we're going to have a chance at combating some of these authoritarian, like very self-oriented, both policies as well as just like cultural shifts, then it has to be accompanied by like empathy. And in the case of the generative point for this conversation, it's like, is there empathy for these extinct creatures that we brought back in that we thought were just to serve our like whimsy and pockets? There should be some radical like dignity that we kind of like put in place for those creatures as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, those poor raptors.
Poor deadly raptors. They need,
Well, it's, my question about like how many humans is enough humans, it comes from this, I first heard this from this guy, Ted Schmidt, who's a friend of mine who works at the Allen Institute for AI, but he's worked in conservation for his whole career. And he puts the question, how many elephants is enough elephants? And it's like, we're putting, I think what we just have to recognize is like we are in a position where if we are trying to sort of improve the world, we're confronting almost questions that are almost impossible to answer. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to like feel our way in the dark here and be like, actually, I don't know how many elephants is enough. Like, again, it's not infinite. Just like, I think the answer for like how many humans is the right amount of humans, it's like, that is not my decision to make. But to go back to your point, like, can we describe a future that we really think will be good for the most people possible, and for generations moving forward? Like, again, there's no easy answer to any of that, but like, I think it's something worth reflecting on and thinking about a lot. And it ends up always being like a moral and ethical discussion.
Yeah,
it's not an
you're
engineering
right.
discussion.
Not an engineering discussion, but I do think that there is a policy play in here, because when you think about the emergence and like kind of like the dominant like kind of conversation around AI right now, and in this story, the corollary is like biotech, right? And
Right.
and it's like, it's unregulated, it's new, it's like, and folks are kind of experimenting and coming up with different ways to do this. And yes, those could say that like, hey, this is necessary for things to kind of like be developed and to improve and to like get to a place where they are like delivering like really positive benefits. But there's definitely a lot of like fox guarding the hen house. Like, you have people that have same folks that are like experimenting and kind of pushing this can easily like have a stake in the profits versus like the science of it, or like what it could be used for. And so I think that one of the other lessons that we kind of have to take from this and have to like continue to think when you have emergent new technologies is a conversation around like what policies are put in place to make sure that there is some effort or some way in which we, either through regulation or at least through some kind of check and balance of some sort, recognize that there can be, there can end up being too many elephants because there's profit in those elephants, and the people that are deciding how many elephants are enough, or how many elephants there should be, are the ones making the most money from it. So that's I mean, that's the role. That's the role. It's why you vote for people. It's why you put people in place so that they can like really tackle some of those questions around how do you kind of put checks and balances in place to like save us from ourselves.
Yeah. No, it's fraught, man. Like this, my dad was a public health officer, his whole career. And he was in some meeting once with like, I don't know, somebody who represented like the convenience store trade association or something like that.
Okay.
And my dad just throws out this like really, potentially innocuous question, but like still an important question. He's just like, why is it that like all the food and all these stores is just like really bad junk food? And this lobbyist guy was like, what are you, a communist? Like, just like immediately it was just like, oh, you must be a communist, I guess.
Right.
You're going to tell people what they can and can't eat. And,
Right.
My dad's a public health officer. It's like,
right.
There's some pretty serious problems with how Americans eat. It's like, it is self-evident. You can see it everywhere. And like it seems like the only intervention that is working now is like Ozempic. You just need like you need the market to provide a solution for everything, because policy can't do it, at least in America. Like, we can't tell people what they can and can't eat. And I'm saying I agree with you, but also like I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I gave this talk last in December at Yale called Internet Power, where I basically made the case. I'm like, look, like there's another form of like market power that technology has enabled with the internet, and like the game's over for like a lot of democratic governing institutions. Like, they're just we're at the point where so many governments, they have to lobby the tech companies to get anything done.
Yeah.
And like, that's crazy. But very few people are willing to like recognize that fact. I'm trying to say like, well, it's like, I'm not saying like it's way worse than you think. I'm not trying to be like doom and gloom. I'm just like, I think we should confront this reality because I'm pretty sure this is the situation now.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah,
I don't think you're wrong. I don't. Yeah, I think though that we can be fickle though. So I also feel like I feel that power is fleeting. Or at least I want to believe that just because of fatigue and just because of like I don't want to play my original Nintendo version of the internet anymore and or social media. Like I just want to do something else, and so I think that there could be an emergent, and it's probably generational if anything else, just lack of interest that will definitely kind of impact the power that some of those like tech oligarchs have over
for sure
our ability to kind of like what we see and what we hear and what we digest.
Yeah. And I mean, there's no way to explain to like, no, I think you're right. Like there's no way to explain to our kids, like how powerful MTV was for our generation,
Right.
like, MTV is like a complete joke now. Like it's nothing. Completely.
Is it even on? Does it exist? I don't know if it exists.
I'm sure it exists in some form, but like, it's just like been chewed up by multiple private equity firms at this point. I'm sure. Yep. I don't know. Like, I think you're right about that, but I guess what I would say though is that the idea that like some of our existing governing institutions or all of them will somehow be able to modernize, I don't think is accurate. Like and I've been saying this for a long time. It's like we need new kinds of institutions that are born in the internet era, that actually understand the technology inherently, rather than just being like, we're gonna do a fancy website again. I mean, I talk about this a lot. Now I'm just talking about my work stuff, but like, I think, which I guess I'm allowed to do on my own podcast.
Yeah.
But like you are right. Like all of these like titans will go away because they do. Like very few businesses last that long. And I guess what I'm advocating for, or what I'm interested in figuring out, is like, can we create really like durable institutions that are like made out of the internet, like born of technology? This is part of the fantasy of like a lot of like crypto people. But there's so much grifting in that space, it's impossible to tell if they're sincere or not. So
I definitely don't know enough about it to have a coherent conversation, but I think that it went quickly from that aspirational version of decentralizing like one kind of like sector, just particularly banking, to like being like a grab bag of like greed and manipulation. So hard to tell.
We'll keep hacking on it.
So no, there's some, gosh, you made me think just now around another kind of like relevant text in that way, which is the Ministry of the Future. Which just because of the idea of creating a different type of entity that is set up to be able to address an emergent need, as opposed to like just playing catch up with like the interaction between like a policy framework and like the kind of economy or world that's going on around it. Which is like the Kim Stanley Robinson epic.
It's on my shelf back there and I haven't read it. I read the first chapter. Is unbelievable. I loved it.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in though.
I mean, I shouldn't say like I loved it. Like it's an intense like first. It's an amazing start to a book. And then I haven't finished it. And it's like, of all the people who should read it, I probably should.
I do think that some. Good. I was gonna say that some books are great for audiobooks too. So just put that out there.
Noted. Okay. No, you reminded me also before when we were talking about dignity and stuff like that and our relationship to other people. Did you ever see Us? I just watched that recently on a plane.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's I was like, what is this movie? And
oh, right. Okay.
Some interviews with Jordan Peele, and he's just like, no, like this is about privilege. Like this is about the fact, like if you're doing well, someone else isn't doing well, and like you need to
correct. Yes.
So anyway, just a call back to that.
No.
Okay. I got a few notes from the movie that I just thought it would be funny to just go. First of all, Sam Neill, unbelievable. So good.
No,
like,
I love good Sam Neill.
Actor.
Yeah, he actually surfaced in a new show I watched recently too, which I can't remember the name of it, but it takes place in Yosemite. So like look for that. It's like one of those like short series, shows.
I'm a Sam Neill fan. I was just reminded of like how good he is. The Jeeps in the movie have rectangular headlights, which is amazing. And I don't know if that was like just like the 90s being a little bit off for the Jeep brand, which I think it was.
Well, let's see. I can go. So I'll use this time to introduce different things I have. I have my official script book, which is like
that's right.
Yeah. So I while we're talking, I'll see if there's any reference to the Jeep headlights, because it gives like some good some good background information on a lot of the decision points, and like some sketches around different things, particularly as relates to like some of the scenery choices and other things too. So
good. Okay.
Good fun to have. I mean, doesn't everybody have the script and scene book of Jurassic Park? Is that not
it's like
required
it's
reading?
like that and Bob Marley's Legend CD.
Yeah.
Like a thing that everyone owned. The baby dinosaur hatching is hilarious because it's like a puppet. It's like
yes.
What I loved is they have Mr. DNA. This is actually like right up my alley.
Yes.
This is a very interesting thing. They're showing the movie and they're like, I'm Mr. DNA. Like it's like a total like Schoolhouse Rock type thing. And I looked up the quote to get it verbatim. Someone had it online. A full DNA strand contains 3 billion genetic codes. If we looked at screens like these 1 second for 8 hours a day, it'd take 2 years to look at the entire DNA strand. And like,
it's that long. Yeah. It's great.
You have it memorized. That is what he says. He says it's that long.
I have a lot of it memorized. It's unfortunate. So I'll give you a fun fact about that. In the original proposed screenplay, this is something that's dear to my heart. Mr. DNA had a Jamaican accent. and they opted to go with like a Southern draw instead.
Oh man.
That would have been amazing.
It would have been amazing if they have like if that audio is still around.
Oh gosh.
Well, why don't we just have somebody read the script? You've got the script book. Find a Jamaican guy, do the accent.
Yeah, I think that's going to be necessary. I will actually like. I'm sure there's some quick AI input that I can make that happen.
Okay,
you receive that shortly. Yeah.
Okay. But I love this guy. I'm always on the lookout for like, how do you describe like what massive volumes of data is?
Yes.
Like, it is not intuitive to people. And this is just very funny. They're like, you know what you would want to do with this DNA strand is read it. Like,
yeah,
that's not what it's for. But like, that's the only way they can explain it is be like, to look at the whole thing, it would take you, let's assume you have to sleep and you need time to eat. So it's only 8 hours a day that you'll look at it, but it'll take you 2 years. It's like
and that the visual they give with that is like kind of like having it's almost like a real like it has the what's the thing there used to be at the at libraries when you want to look at old
it's like a microfiche. Yeah.
Microfiche, yeah. So it has that rolling quality that makes you think about how to visualize a lot of information.
So good. And then the other shocker for me is that Samuel L. Jackson's in the movie.
Yes.
Like smoking half the time.
Smoking half the time, being like a good balance in the cast. It's
great.
You can't fail when you introduce Samuel L. Jackson into anything.
No. He was 44 years old. I looked it up how old he was. It's a young,
spry Sam Jack.
Yeah. Anyway, I think
The
that's
yeah.
they also have mag lights in the movie, which was a throwback.
Mm.
Do you remember mag
Mm-hmm,
lights?
mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was
I
like,
do.
because I was in scouts and stuff like that. I was like always on the lookout for like an awesome flashlight, and so like
Awesome
mag lights
flashlight. Yeah,
were the best. Yeah.
yeah. The
All right.
another thing just on the characters to the so like another note for book to movie is that they kind of changed out some of the things in the characters. There's like in the book, the kids are kind of switched. The older one is the boy and the younger one
Right.
is the girl, right? And so I think that also like, and in the book, the younger kid is like incredibly annoying and like just constantly like nagging and being like incessant. And so I think, yeah, right. Yeah. You're constantly like, this is like, so I think that was probably more successful the way they did it in the movie. The other character issue, or not issue, but like notable thing is that there's kind of like this other guy in the book. His name is Ed Regis, but he's like he's like the I don't know how to explain him. He's kind of like the public like relations guy for
the PR guy.
park.
That's right.
Yeah. And so and he and they gave like basically all of his stuff to the lawyer, to Gennaro. Like basically all his stuff kind of gets filtered into that. But I do think that they it's just, I always find it fascinating, like what people choose to take out, and especially when they're like people that really kind of play larger roles in one narrative versus another, and like there's just so much like decision making that goes into that I feel like in some ways doesn't like can really just impact like the intent of the story and whether or not you're getting like enough perspectives in place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is kind of funny to think about. They're like, PR guy, lawyer, like who cares? Like it's just like schmuck that we're gonna kill. Like, yeah,
we'll give him an ill-fitting suit.
Yeah, yeah. Either way, it'll work. Actually, yeah, the PR guy would probably be a little. Well, I don't know. Some lawyers dress up real fancy. Some PR people dress up real fancy. Either way, this guy, you're glad when he gets eaten.
Yes.
The other thing was Goldblum being so creepy. Like he's like a perv. Like he's just a creepy guy.
He's just very like it's like what's the right word? Yeah, he's creepy. He's like he's very smarmy. Like smarmy. Yeah, it's like kind of grimy. You're kind of but you're like why are you like so flirtatious all the time? Like what's happening here? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's a total like it's crazy. He's just like I'm always on the lookout for a future ex-wife. You know.
Yeah. Like who says that? Why would you say that?
Yeah, and then yeah, you know, having just read the book and then seeing the movie, I'm like, you know, he dies in the book too, and you're like, man, he shouldn't have got off the island alive. Like he's a total creep.
Yeah, they did a good. They could have done a better job, I think, of just killing off more people. I think that's like let's have there be immediate karma for bad behavior.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder what this says about Spielberg and his values. Fair. One last thought, and maybe this shouldn't be the last thought, but I'll just throw this out there. Spielberg, little corny, and I think the guy who does all those movie scores? Everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, I know John. You're talking about. It's definitely a John involved, but it's now I'm gonna need to
shoot. Composer John Williams. John Williams.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just because we just sort of grew up in this world. Like, I don't think I can watch Casablanca. Like, I've tried to watch it, but there's so many one-liners that you hear all the time that you can't hear. You can't watch them unironically. And I think Spielberg and John Williams and stuff like that is for me. I'm just like, oh, it's too much of an era. Like, it's like listening to like 90s like music, you know, that's like produced in a certain way, and you're like, oh, okay. Like
it's all
dated now. Yeah,
it's dated and it feels like a little bit lazy. And you're like, you didn't have to do that, you know. I think fine. I think I'm not. It's not even so much that it's like just of the moment or of like the era. It's like I think it was lazy then, you know. So like you didn't have to just like spoon feed certain things to everyone. You know, they in the script book they talk about there's a moment in the movie where Sam Neill's character, Alan Grant, is like they're going upstairs in the like the main lobby, and he's like, "Oh, like, we're gonna be out of a job," and then like Ian Malcolm runs up and is like, "Don't you mean extinct?" And you're like, "Okay, like, thanks everybody for like the dum dum," great,
yeah. Yeah. There's a bit of corniness to it, but I don't know
yeah.
if that's a me problem or not. But yeah, I think
No, yeah,
you're right.
I share it.
I think it's sort of the price of success in like the way Spielberg and Williams were so successful is that, to your point, like it's like this feels lazy, and it's like no, like they actually invented this whole genre that like is the world that we live in, and now it just seems like it rote, but it's like no, they created this.
Yeah, they made the decision to do it.
Cinema.
Yeah. That came with power, the power to make those decisions, and they put it in there, and now it's part of our canon. And maybe it shouldn't
be.
It's
part of your life once a year.
Yeah. Once a year. It's like, here I am back on Isla Nublar, like just trying to like figure a way out. Waiting, like, always wishing that the gameskeeper, like Robert Muldoon, I wished that once he realized that the Raptors were hunting him, and it's like, so you're there, you got you're poised at one of the Raptors, the other one sneaks up next to you, like just pull the trigger. You're not going to make it out, so just like I'm going to take one of these guys out, and that's because I'm like I've been around enough hunts to know that my time is up. So
yeah. Okay.
I wish he that's my hot take. That's my hot take there. Yeah.
This, I mean, all right. I mean, speaking of like the AI future, like how many like fanfic things will we get in the future where it's like, hey, ChatGPT, make me Jurassic Park, but make it like this,
Yeah. I mean, that's all Jamaican accents all the time. I think that is what is kind of like thought to be like in some ways some of the highest and best use that we'll see. Like people are like, hey, can you give me, like, you've now seen all the episodes of Stranger Things, can you produce like what you think is going to be the season opener for the next season, and that will be fun, I guess. But I think that it's like, okay, what do I value? Am I valuing predictive things, or am I valuing like someone making decisions based on their own like desires and creativity and everything else? And I think we'll get both. And the question is like, what are you going to gravitate towards?
Yeah. I was just talking about this with some neighbors. Like, I love Jason Statham movies, and
as you should.
Yeah. And those are made by the market, right? So like my argument is we already have that. Like we already have art house films, and we have the market that's just sort of like they're just cranking out Jason Statham films. And I'm like, if AI allows us to sort of like turn up the knob, the Jason Statham knob, and just greater throughput of those movies, it's fine. Like, that's great. Like, I will watch them on planes, and I'll be happy every time I do. And also, there's always going to be this is sort of what I was saying before about like I get stuff off my plate, I just put more stuff on my plate. Like we will make things super easy to produce, but it's just going to move the goalpost and be like, okay, try harder, humans, and people will. I think people will just keep stepping.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, the idea of fan fiction is something that has always existed, right? And it's like in the kind of world of like whether it's like Star Wars or like other things, it's like people will come up all the time with like, hey, I've like within this universe, I've created a slightly different narrative that I'm like offering up to the community. And so, and they're decentralized. It's just like the notion of like, I had an idea, I had the time and capacity to kind of put some effort into it. And it's celebrated because it's a form of, it's like an honorific. It's like I am offering this up to the community, and that's exciting. I think that there's some idea that somehow that product is less valuable because it's like AI generated. I don't know if that's true. I think that, I think it's just more like, I want to see what you come up with, and I'll watch it, and I'll watch other things too, and that will be how it goes. And there also will be less less gatekeepers for what I'm able to watch, which I think is probably good.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. I mean, like I this is a good place to start wrapping it up, but like,
yeah,
it is. I love talking about this. I could go off. I could talk about Duchamp. We talked about Duchamp in a previous episode. He's the guy that, like, put a urinal in a museum, and he's like, it's art. And they're like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. I mean, if you think it's art, then it is. And and you and I grew up at a time when it was like you could not listen to certain like genres. It's like, I like everything but like rap and country, or like I like everything but heavy metal or whatever. And then I love to talk about how, like, I think Nine Inch Nails won a Grammy for best country song because of Old Town Road,
right.
which is like, what happened? Like, suddenly we're in the future
Yeah,
where
right.
like there's some like gay guy making a rap song, but it's a country song and it samples Nine Inch Nails, and everyone's like, yeah, this is great. Like,
right.
so yeah, the no gatekeepers thing. Also, like, this podcast and just me as a person, I'm always at risk of being pretentious, wanting to talk about literature and stuff like that. It's like,
Okay.
no, like, we should definitely talk about Jurassic Park, the movie and the book.
Yeah.
It's all awesome.
Yeah. It's part of this culture that we're a part of. And like, and also you get to, I know we're wrapping. And so like, there's part of this that I think is still relevant. I think that part of the exciting part around like the idea of like these offerings to a culture and kind of things is that there's the ability for, this is like tying into the AI conversations. Like, I really do love that we're in an era where we could explore parts of some of these stories and these narratives that can be more meaningful to people, right? That can be more inclusive and more welcoming, right? So like, we have this narrative that's out there. Well, it's like, there's in the book, there's this, the opening scene, the opening part of the book is like this like Costa Rican like female doctor at like kind of like a village like level,
Yeah.
like hospital that first encounters like one of the victims of like an attack. And
Yeah.
and I want to know what her story is. Like, I want to know like what's the Costa Rican like Latina doctor story that is like trying to solve like something that seems off. And like, and also she's like hearing stuff around like babies that are dying because they're getting bitten and getting killed. And like, but then their parents are covering that up because they don't want to like, they think it's like spirits that are coming to take the baby, like all that stuff. I'm like, let's have a whole narrative about that, because like I think one of the lessons is that gatekeepers to determine what part of the stories are important for the audiences that they want to reach. And we're in a world now where like a lot of the tools that are the technology tools that are in place will allow for us to more people to extract more meaning and value that also reaches them and reaches like somewhat more traditionally excluded folks from these narratives. And I think that is a future I want to be a part of. And it's not something where you have to, again, rely on like one way to interpret something. You can take more from it, and you can actually like, I think that gets to that place where the dignity increases because more people are being able to see themselves in these stories.
Oh man, I love that. We're gonna thank you so much, Mark, for coming on.
Yeah,
we're gonna end it there on a high note.
100%. Yeah, that's fantastic. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. No one else will talk about this with me, so I thank you for doing that. I realized that before we wrap, I also just for your viewing pleasure, I have a piece of like Jurassic Park art that I've also had. This is a screen print of Dennis Nedry's screen prompts, where when it goes into like, it's like the Etsy purchase I made like a decade ago. Yeah. It's like, it goes basically, it's like the input, and then it was like, then it goes into like the automated response if you didn't say the magic word. And I usually have this up wherever like my desk is or whatever else. So it's, again, no one else to tell that story to. So I appreciate
You've got the bona fides. Now we all know. All right. Yeah. The true Jurassic Park expert.
It's great.
All right. Thanks, man.
Oh, man. Yo, thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. Love talking to Mark. We talked about all sorts of stuff. We actually, I think we're going to do a part 2 of this, if in case you want more of whatever that was. There's just so much stuff, after we finished talking, we're like, there's so many other things we could have talked about with regards to sustainability, technology in the 90s and growing up in this era. So we might come back to this well. We'll see. I think there's still a lot of ground to cover. But in any event, I'm so grateful to Mark for doing this with me. He's just such an awesome guy. And it was really, really fun to revisit Jurassic Park. I want to shout out Chris Beto, he's also a guest on the podcast before in our episode about On Exactitude in Science by Jorge Luis Borges. Chris also recommended that I do Jurassic Park. And so it was really funny. I was already talking to Mark about doing this, and I got a message from Chris on LinkedIn. He's like, you should probably do Jurassic Park. And it was already in the works, but Chris definitely like pushed us over the edge to make it happen. Anyhow, so as always, if you have recommendations of stuff we should be talking about, I do like to hear from you. If you like this, tell a friend, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And as always, thank you to Secret School for the intro music to Text on Text. And the song you're hearing right now is 3/10 of the Population by We. I will see you next month. If all goes to plan, I'll have George Dyson on for the 3rd time. 3-peat George Dyson. We're going to talk about a book called The Black Cloud by Fred Hoyle. So stay tuned for that. Much more to come. Bye.